right, welcome back, everyone. Buck Fever podcast episode. I'm not sure, but we're up there, getting close to probably. Well, we're supposed to do one every year or once a week for the whole year, so we got to be getting somewhat close to the 30s or 40s.
This one is going to be 39.
Okay. Um, Kind of a little bit of an exciting one tonight because I killed a buck this past weekend. So we're gonna tell the little bit of the story, the whole story, and kind of start what the whole gun or the whole bull season was like. It's only been the second weekend, so not too many sits for us, but enough memories already. So opening weekend, it was Saturday. I got poured on with rain, even though it said we weren't supposed to. And then as soon as I get out to my stand, just dumped on. So that was whatever. It was opening day, so I wasn't gonna miss it. It wasn't bad. I ended up seeing six does and fawns, so nothing crazy. Good time up there Saturday night with my dad and uncles and a couple other guys up at the cabin. So Sunday night comes around, and some reason the deer were moving like crazy. I mean, between me, my dad, and my uncle, I bet you we saw 30 something deer. So good night. I wasn't gonna shoot a doe that early, which is kind of a big topic for us, wouldn't you say, of when we should start shooting them?
Yeah, we've had lots of discussions and we continue to have them all the time. Just the timing of it all. I know we've struggled with that a lot on our property. Like, anytime you have bucks showing up, it's like, well, if we shoot a doe, that might blow out like the majority or all of our property. So we kind of want to wait for that buck to come by. But then if he never does, then you don't get your doe patrol done, and the whole early season, late season debate. It's definitely, I would agree, it's definitely been a hot topic for us.
Right. So, I could have shot a couple that night, and I didn't. And on my way out, it just hit close. So I was like, well, I was covered up in deer all night. I'm finally not. I'm gonna get down before I can't get down. So I get down and I'm walking out, and I get to the bean field, and I can. It's somewhat light out still. Like, I can make out deer, and there's a few out there, and I'm kind of glassing them. And sure enough, I see a pretty decent sized rack, and catches my attention. And I'm watching and watching, and I'm like, that deer looks familiar, and he looks a little bigger than I thought. And it turns out it was Junky, which is his core area. I should have known it was him. He's pretty much lives in that area. So I go along. I jump back down into the pasture, we call it, and I don't walk out to the bean field, so they don't even know I'm there, which was turns out to be pretty cool. Get up to the farm, I'm unchanging, and my uncle's like, "Yeah, I saw one of our other shooters out in the field tonight too. We call him PT, a perfect 10." And a little side note, he's been pretty prominent now. Last night he was out at 7 o'clock. Got a picture of him at 5 o'clock today.
Wow.
Yeah, 5 in the afternoon. I mean, they were moving like crazy, which I guess makes sense with this rain and cold front we've had.
Yep.
I don't know. It's all of a sudden starting to turn around. Our food plots are looking great with all this rain and stuff we've had, and I don't know. The deer have been moving. So anyway, week goes by and it's pretty warm. I know I convinced you I was kind of bugging you all week, like, "Hey, come sit with me, come sit with me, come sit with me," and you're like, "Oh, I'll let you know on Thursday." And so Thursday rolls around, you're like, "Yeah, I guess I can come sit with you." I'm like, perfect. We haven't sat together in, I don't know, it's been over a year for sure. We didn't sit together at all last season. So
Yeah, it's been a while. I think we sat in a gun stand the season before last, during bow season, but I mean, it would have been basically 2 full years.
yeah. And so we're still early enough in the year where we can both work a full day and still get out to the stand, um, with time to hunt, which is awesome. Noah, you got a little bit of farther drive than I do, but so I ended up going into work early that day. Just so happened to work out that I was starting at 6 instead of 7, so I was all for that. And get out a little earlier. I ended up running home to shower because I smelled like diesel fuel, and deer don't like that. So worked out good. I got to the farm a little bit before Noah, and he was pretty much ready to rumble when we got there. And we were going out on a doe mission, and I mean, we were covered up in deer all night, as you guys seen. I don't know. It was what, like, it's probably only 75 degrees, but it was humid out. It was just sticky, almost like a summer night. And but me, I can't stay out of the woods, so I can't pass up these opportunities to go hunt after work while it's still light out. So of course, we were out there and we were sitting in this gun stand that we pretty much hung it up, and we're done. We were done sitting in there. We built that brand new one, and that's on the channel, and it's kind of gained a lot of traction actually watching that, or for views wise, and it's pretty sweet. Nice big stand, and I was like, we could have sat in it with the wind we had. I mean, obviously you're enclosed, so the wind doesn't really matter too much, but I didn't want to sit there. I wasn't comfortable. It's not the easiest to shoot a ball out of, especially with two people. With one, you could do it, but it's just still too just close. And you got open windows and stuff. I mean, it's perfect for gun season, but if you had to in a pinch, like it's raining out. I know I sat in there last year one time when it was raining, when there's nothing else to do. It's raining all day, but you want to be out there. So we get there, and we're kind of I wouldn't say running late. I mean, it was like 4:45, so still over 2 hours to hunt, 2.5 hours probably. And so we get down there and we jump a doe and a fawn right away. I mean, we walk down there probably 20 yards from where we're gonna sit, jump a doe and a fawn. And the reason we jumped them is because we had to go get chairs to put from the new stand into the old stand we were going into, because no one sat in it for 2 years. So I'm sure Noah at this point is thinking, wow, I really shouldn't have came, because he even texted me and said, how come sit as long as we're not sitting in any sketchy stand? Well, I found the most sketchy stand we have.
Yeah, you've been known to be a little bit braver in some of those situations than I have, but I mean, you get the stairs were really the
Yeah,
sketchiest. I mean, you can hear the creaking, like the whole video. I got texts about that too, and like, oh man, my dog's he's listening to the video and he's freaking out. He doesn't like the way that the stand's creaking like that. I'm like, I sat there for 3 hours that night or whatever, and then in editing the video that I spent like all day Sunday on, I probably listened to that thing creak for like 10 hours. So
right. And it wasn't even it sounds worse in the video, to be honest.
correct, it does. Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely not the most sturdy stand. The stand part's fine. It's just that stand's been there for, I'd have to ask my dad, but I bet close to 20 years. So it's just, the tree has grown since then, and
Right.
it's kind of like started to rip it out of the tree.
I
And
mean,
we stairs once.
you and I could rebuild the whole thing in an afternoon if we wanted to.
Right, yeah. Like the floor is fine. We just got to put new sides on it, basically.
Right, and new steps, and then it's
Right.
golden.
Well, that was our problem. Those steps we've learned, because we've built like 6 new stands since then, and you bite the bullet, pay a little bit extra for treated lumber, because those were not treated. We painted them, which lasted for 4 or 5 years, but it just doesn't matter. It's Wisconsin. It snows. It's covered in snow for 6 months and rain, and you just bite the bullet, treat it.
Yep.
Let it weather for a year, then go out and paint it, and then you should be golden for quite some time. So.
Yep.
Yeah, so I tell Noah I'll go up first on the stairs in case we do fall through, because I don't want to fall through. So I take my bow and my backpack up first, and I get up there and almost kind of toss them in there, but I set my bow nicely. I'm like dispersing my weight all over the place, and Noah's handing me up chairs, and then he came up pretty quick. I'd say the way up was better than the way down for sure. It's light, you can see which steps are bad. So we get all settled in. There's coon shit everywhere. I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of them come down the tree 5 inches from our face. So,
oh God.
I don't know. They never ended up coming out, which was cool. But so we're sitting there, and I know I got a cell cam right there, and I know that it's basically just loaded with those in there. And I'm kind of telling Noah, I'm like, yeah, nope. Well, don't worry about the ones we bumped. It wouldn't surprise me if they come back, which I think they did. But I'm like, yeah, they usually come through here pretty early. Meanwhile, by the time we got set, it was probably 5 o'clock, all settled in.
Yeah, I would say.
I'm kind of like, yeah, 5:15 to that 5:45 range is when they'll first start coming up, and for sure, I'd say it was about 5:30 when we saw our first ones, and um, after that, we were kind of just covered up the whole night.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the video turned out to be like 36 minutes, and probably at least half of that, maybe more, is from that night, that Friday night sit. And that's with cutting out essentially a full 2 hours worth of footage. We were basically recording the whole night. And there's a scene or two in there where there's no, I didn't chop it at all. It's literally like minute by minute. It's like a 10-minute stretch or 7-minute stretch or something of like exactly as it happened. And there's just deer everywhere. There's deer on our left. And you're talking this whole time, like doing an interview. And then, I pan to the deer, pan back to you. Then a doe walks in on us and pan down to that. And then you just keep talking. It's like we saw a deer once they showed back up at 5:30 or whatever, like you said. There was deer in there the rest of the night.
Yeah, it was it was pretty eventful, which is obviously what you hope for. Bringing someone else to hunt, and I was pretty stoked to have you come hunt. So I was hoping we'd have a good sit, which we did.
Yeah, we
And
we did for sure. That was the first. I didn't see any deer on opening weekend, so to see that many and for that long, that was by far the best hunt I've had in a while. So it was definitely a good night.
yeah, and like Noah said, we were sitting there just talking and doing a quick little interview, and there's deer over there, and one walks in on us, and just covered up in deer all night, and I can't get a shot, which in reality was probably a saving grace because I would have never been down there the next night to kill that buck that I did. So obviously I really wanted to, and she stood by the licking branch and just pounded acorns for like 10 minutes straight, and all I needed was for her to take two more steps. I definitely would have shot her. She wasn't the biggest. I know there was a few bigger ones that were off to our east, which they were kind of downwind of us. So I'm guessing they caught a whiff. I don't know. There's not much between us and the river, so I kind of figured it would just blow right over them. But I don't know. You got that many noses in there. They knew something wasn't right. They didn't know what it was. They didn't like run off and blow and tear out of there. They just kind of bounded off and just stayed out of bow range basically.
Yep.
So no harm, no foul there, and we sit it out and ended up seeing 10, and it's getting dark. So once again, we got up there. We got to go down there, back down the steps, and my dad texted me because he could see on the camera. He's like, "Oh, I see you decided to go sit there," and I was like, "Yeah." Well, he thought we sat in the new one. I said, "No, the old one." He goes, "Oh, I thought we retired that day." And I said, "It's unretired. It's unretired for tonight."
Yeah, that's the Tom Brady stand right there.
Yeah, pretty much. So we Noah goes down first. He's kind of shimmying, and I don't know what it is, but when I get hunting, I kind of just, this is kind of bad to say, but lose all context of safety about, like, let's just get up here and hunt type of thing.
Right.
My stands are moon stands. I got them way up there and
Yeah.
climbing through trees after you climb up an 18-foot ladder to get to them. But
Right.
so I can see where you were coming with the whole sketchy stand part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got ladder stands that they're 18 feet or whatever. But we have lifelines at each of them, so like you're harnessed in from the ground all the way up. Nothing's gonna happen to you, and they're pretty secure up there. So I was just making sure because I know you got a couple of those. Like you said, you gotta curious storage your way up, half of the tree just to get up into it.
Right.
But
So
going down the steps like you said, it was dark, but some of them are somewhat rotted out. But just like having a bow in one hand, trying to hold on to the railing in the other, and then you kind of had to walk on the stringers a little bit. That was like the most stable part. But there was a couple steps as I watched you go up it that you would step on it, realize it was pretty soft, and then skip it and go to the next. But then going down, you couldn't possibly remember which ones those were. So then I had to like step down onto it with my weight, like gravity taking it down, and then realize, oh, that's a little soft, and then back off and then skip it. So It was,
Right.
it was what it was, but going down's easier. You're just every step you're closer to the ground, so you kind of just go quick and hope for the best.
Yeah. See, that's what I was kind of thinking with your approach. I saw you were, you're kind of feeling it out. And I was like, I wonder if I just go as fast as I can down. Well,
Just fall with grace.
I thought about it, and I kind of went quick, but all in all, we make it down, we get out of there, and get back to the farm. No big deal. Um, Sit there, shoot the shit for a little bit, talk. You got quite the drive home. I'm only going 15 minutes to the cabin, so hang out, talk for a little bit, discuss what I'm eating for dinner. Realize that the pizza I was gonna have has been in there sitting on a bag of ice that wasn't ice anymore for the last 13 hours in the back of my truck. So it was probably more than that actually. I put it in there at like 5:45, so 5 o'clock. So it was in there for a good
It was probably 14
14.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah, and I gave her a go at the cabin. Tried cooking her up, didn't work. I mean, it cooked fine. It was just very doughy and wet. Like the dough didn't cook, which is to be expected of a pizza sitting in water. So uh, I really contemplated going out the next morning because it was a big, quite the dough weekend for me. I was trying to put down a few of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Um, Weather wasn't great, but I was still out there, and I contemplated going in the morning, which I never do ever. And honestly, if I had the right wind, I probably would have went. But I was woken up to a torrential downpour and storm at like 7:30, like just pouring buckets. Like
Yep.
I bet you we got 3/4 of an inch in like an hour. Like it was insane. Like most it came down in a while up there, which was good. I mean, keeps the deer in and more reason for them to get up early later that night.
Right.
So we're I'm just kind of dicking around at the cabin and waiting for my uncle to get up there, doing some stuff. I ran over to the farm, pulled some chips, and did some things there quick, and got back. And I helped him at his property for a little bit, and then we just kind of chilled, watched some college football, shot some squirrels, tried to at least. Um, and then it was 3 o'clock before you know it, time to start showering. My dad was meeting me at the farm at 4 o'clock, so I was there about quarter to four, flung a few arrows, was getting dialed in, and he already picked the stand he was going to because we had an east wind, which is about good for about 3 stands.
Yep.
Since there's three of us who can hunt there, there's three of us who will be there at the most at all times. So we have 3 stands for every wind,
Right.
and east being the least common of them, we only have three. Some of them we have a couple,
Mm-hmm.
north got 5 or 6 type of thing. So he already picked. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go into the lounge where I killed my Blade Runner 2 years ago, which is like thick of the bedding. Like you got to tiptoe your way in there. We got a 4 foot wide disc path up there into there, all dirt, just so we can be as quiet as possible. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go in there. I was like, all right, well, I still wanted to shoot a doe, and we weren't gonna shoot a doe in there because it's just right in the bedding area. And so I was contemplating that, or going to sit over. I was contemplating going to sit over a bean field, or go about 60 yards from where we were sitting the previous night. You and I would have put us in that stand if I could have got a hang on there, but that oak tree is about 4 feet round, so it's impossible basically.
Yep.
So I was sitting there at the truck waiting forever. I get dressed, still don't know where I'm going to sit. I'm ready to go. It's whether or not I got to drive up to the other end of the property or I start walking in. And I was like, well, I got a pretty good chance of seeing a buck down there just because I know they've been on camera up there. I don't necessarily have a cell cam on the other spot I was going to go sit. It's in the general area, but not directly on it. So I was like, well, I'll just go down there. I know I got a good chance of shooting a doe down there and whatnot. So I start heading, making my way down there. I'm set up about well before 4:30, I'd say, and no service whatsoever down there. So can't text, can't do anything, which is fine. Makes you pay attention a lot more, which is sad to say that these phones take away. And I'm sure a lot of people have missed deer or screwed up on deer looking at their phone. I'm a victim to it. I go on my phone too much, definitely when I can. So what was I doing? I wasn't on my phone for the first 45 minutes. just enjoying nature and stuff. And I was like, well, I want to see what time these deer have been coming through here just so I can get ready. I've been kind of trying to pattern them. So I pull it out. The only thing I can get is my old text messages. I'm looking through them from Cuddyback because they sent them to me via text.
Yep.
So I'm at times and stuff, and all of a sudden I hear, and I look over, and it was pretty windy. It was like 12 miles an hour, so I couldn't really hear them if they were coming. And they were down. They came downwind to me, which didn't really make sense. But I look over, and there's a doe and fawn about 10 yards away from me, kind of booking through right on the trail I wanted them to go on, but I couldn't get a shot, couldn't stand up, couldn't do nothing. And they scooted through there pretty quick, and they were making their way back to that licking branch and raining acorns. And with all that rain, they got a little hole dug there from the licking branch, so there's water piled up in there. So they were on a mission to get there. And I was like, well, it's early. It's only 5:15 at this time, so I wasn't too worried or concerned. I'm sure I'd see a different one or have another shot at one. And so I'm kind of watching. I'm trying to get some film, and they hung around for a little bit and boogied out of there and went down towards deeper into the marsh. And I hear some rustling around. I'm trying to get my camera arm over there. Camera arm starts falling over in the tree and messing with that, and I can hear splashing in the slough, and I see a little spike down there. So I throw my binos up, and he starts kind of running around, and then I catch a glimpse of a 2.5. I'm like, oh, that's a good buck. And then from behind him comes Junky. I'm like, oh, okay. I only saw him for about a second, 2 seconds maybe, and I could tell it was either him or PT. I mean, I was more leaning towards Junky. I was pretty sure it was him. And at this point, it's probably 5:30. So I'm still like, okay, well, no, I'm not shooting a doe. I mean, I've seen him. I know he's around. He's only less than 100 yards away from me at this point from when I've seen him. It's real early. It's still 5:30, so I still got close to 2 hours, a little under 2 hours to hunt. And, I'm like, okay, I made the decision. I'm not shooting a doe anymore, whatnot. And, about 6:30 rolls around. I get a doe. I look over from the same spot the first doe and fawn came from. And a doe and 2 fawns are coming our way. And so I don't know. I start filming them. I maybe could have shot them. They were pretty far, probably 35 yards away. Didn't really think of it. Just tried to get some film of them. And then, I don't know, about 10 minutes later, I hear something behind me in the river. Mind you, this stand's only, I don't know, 25, 30 yards off the river. So my wind is perfect at this point, straight east, blowing right across the river, which I think is why he didn't smell me, because he's right behind me when I see him. He's about 30 yards behind me, and wind's blowing right over him. And because it switched from southeast to pretty much straight east, which is the best possible wind for that stand. And blowing over him, and I catch a glimpse of him. And so I'm like, okay, get ready. I'm in this big oak so I can move. He can't really see me, and I know which way he's kind of going, and there's only one trail that he can pretty much go on that I can shoot. So I just get the camera ready, zooming in, and I'm kind of looking around the backside of the tree. I'm like, oh man, where'd he go? And then I kind of lean over to the front of the other side of the tree, and he's right there. He's, needs to take 6, 7 more steps and get in my shooting lane. So he starts kind of moving, and I, grunt at him, draw back grunt, and stops him. And I you can tell in the video, I basically grunt. He turns his head, and I shoot, which is way too quick. But I was just so worried he's going to pick me off up there because, I didn't have any cover behind me because the back of the tree wasn't behind me. I was basically sticking out.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any cover on that tree, like leaves, because it's just so big.
Mm-hmm.
So I get him to stop and, fling that arrow. And right away I can tell it's high, but not as high as no man's land high, but it's up there.
Right.
And I still don't understand how, because I was shooting on my pin set at 20. I'm pretty dialed at 20, and he's like 25. So if anything, I would have been low, but I was way high. So I'm kind of chalking it up to I rushed it, didn't settle in, which I'm sure I didn't. All happened so quick, and that rage whacked him and just ripped him open right away. I could kind of tell him, like, oh well, he's gonna have a pretty good hole in him, and tears out of there. And I thought I heard him crash, but after tracking him, and he was just running through some absolute thick stuff, probably getting his rack and stuff caught on it. And you know, there's a deer that comes flying past me, like basically between me and the river, and I catch a glimpse, and I see horns. He's going so fast through brush. I don't know what it is, if it was him or not. I was pretty certain at that time it wasn't. And I look behind me and I kind of catch him nosedive into the cattails. I thought it's just tall down there. I mean, you couldn't see a deer if he was walking straight through there. It's like 6, 7 foot tall. And
Yep.
so I kind of marked it in my brain, like, well, if we can't find him right away, I know where we can go start looking if it is him. But like I said, I chalked it up to that wasn't him. I heard him crash 70 yards from where I shot him. And so I get down, first let me backtrack. I'm trying to call people. No cell service. This is at like 6:45. No cell service whatsoever. I finally get reception. I call my dad first, let him know he's up there. He's like, all right, I haven't seen much. I'm going to get down. I'll start heading to the farm and we'll get ready to go. And so then I call you right away. I'm texting my uncle. He's like, all right, I'll get down. I'll head over to your way. So at this point, we're going to have 3 of us tracking. I'm like, well, I probably stand for, 20 minutes before I even got down. Went and looked for blood. I got to the spot. I hit him. Initially, pretty good blood. So I just, dropped my bow right there. Went back to the farm to meet my dad and uncle. And we get there and I review the footage on my laptop and I can tell it's high, but I slow it down frame for frame and it just looks a little higher than what it was. I mean, in the video and the pictures, I'm sure it looks extremely high, but it's not terribly high. I ended up double lunging him. He was probably dead before he even knew it, to be honest, because he did a loop and probably died within 40 seconds of me shooting him. It's kind of on what they call a death run, just running through stuff a deer wouldn't run through if he wasn't hurt, like just barreling through some thick stuff.
Right.
And so we get up there tracking him, and we're going, and there wasn't an exit because I hit his front shoulder.
Because he was quartering away.
Right, and yeah, sorry, he's quartering away. So it was a good shot placement. Like this. The length of the body, just not up and down.
Right.
If I was 4 or 5 inches lower, I'm sure he would have double lunged. I would have had a great blood trail and probably wouldn't have went as far. But anyway, so he takes off and we get to the spot where I thought I heard him crash and he starts turning. I'm like, son of a gun. He did run by me. Sure enough, we're tracking him along the river. I'm like, oh my God, I mean, I should have known. He's a buck. He's trying to get back up into the wind, which was that way, and he's trying to go back to where he came. So he did just that, and we're kind of trailing him when we get to the spot where, mind you, it's dark out now, and I'm pretty familiar with the woods. I kind of know that place like the back of my hand. I'm like, wow, this looks to be the spot. This looks to be the spot where I last saw him. It's all cattails. Everything looks the same down there. But I kind of know my bearings. I'm like, the river's right here. And we kind of stopped. And we kind of lost blood. I wouldn't really say lost blood, but we're on last blood. And we're all 3 fanned out kind of looking. And my dad's like, well, he's standing on last blood. He's last blood. And he's like, well, here's some more to the right. And it was kind of higher up, good blood. I'm like, oh, yeah. So I take that trail, take 2 more steps. And I'm like, dude, he's right here. He's laying right here. Exactly where I saw him last, or where I caught that glimpse of him last. And had I known that was him, I probably would have started right there right away. But it might have been better not to, just in case you jump him. You don't know. You never know.
Right.
So I was pretty excited, obviously. He died right along the river and right where he was living. I'm pretty sure that was his core bedding area, not that exact location, but I mean, I don't know, 100, 125 yards more into the marshes where he was living, and he only died 50 yards from my stand. Probably only ran 120 total.
Right.
So,
well, and I haven't timed it, but you can see in the video, I lined it up so like you shoot, and then you kind of follow the camera for a little bit, and then it switches over to your GoPro footage, and that's not cut out time wise at all. So like the shot to the GoPro footage is exactly the timeline. I just matched it all up. So
Right.
if you watch when you crank your head back around the tree and like watch the deer go back behind you that you didn't know if it was him or not, and then you can hear it crash into the cattails, you're talking like 10 seconds tops, you know. So I mean he made it a ways, but he's just fast. He's a deer, you know. He died really really quick.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it probably wasn't 45 seconds. I guess I'd say it was, the range of 30, if that.
If that. If that.
Yeah.
He died fast.
And when we were gutting him out, I mean, his lungs were just destroyed and tons of blood in there. So, I mean, that's kind of what you hope for, that the animal doesn't suffer and, it's quick, which it pretty much was. That's always a good thing when you find them and you're like, oh, I didn't gut shoot them or something like that, which it happens. And, I've gut shot a few in my life too, and it sucks, but it's all part of hunting. So,
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it was top to bottom just a really cool story from the whole weekend. I know as soon as my phone rang at 7 o'clock on Saturday night, I was like, oh boy, I bet he shot one. But I didn't
well,
want to. I didn't want to answer the phone all, jacked up or whatever. I was just like, hey, buddy, what's up?
yeah, that's kind of I mean, not the joke we have, but like, we never call each other unless we shoot something. Like, I only call you if I shoot something.
Right. I think you called me on opening weekend, maybe. I think you did about something, and then I don't think you were in the woods yet. And I thought you shot one, and I was like, "What are you calling me for if you didn't shoot one?" But
Yeah, it was Friday. You're like, we were driving on, or it was Saturday morning. You're driving out there, and
yes,
you're like, yeah. So what's up? Like, oh, I just called to see how your first sit was.
yeah, like screw that. I don't care. Don't call me unless you shot a buck. You got my heart pumping.
Right.
But no, as soon as you call, I was like, oh boy, I bet either a buck or a doe. Like I'm assuming he shot something here. Like there's probably something going on. So no, that was super cool. And I don't know how much you could really tell from the video because the only conversation about it that we had in the video was in that phone call. But on Friday night, after we got done hunting and we were just sitting by the truck there, just talking and whatever, we had talked about like how a lot of that stuff just kind of happens for a reason. I remember saying like you don't know how the story's going to end, and you just don't know what part of the story you're in right now. Like that night, it just wasn't meant to be for you to shoot that doe. Like you said, if she would have taken two more steps, you would have shot her. Well, then, like you said, you wouldn't have been sitting in that stand. And I know you called me. I could tell you kind of felt bad a little bit of like, oh, maybe we should have sat there the night before, or whatever, or I should have come up there and sat with you. But it's like, with two of us, that was a one-man stand. So if I was there Saturday night, you never would have been able to sit in that one, and then you wouldn't have shot him. So it's like just the way that some of those things happen, you just don't know how that's all going to turn out until it gets there. But when I got that phone call and found out you shot him, it was like, dude, I knew it. It was never in doubt. I wasn't worried about it. I knew that all this stuff was going to be meant to be. There was a reason why we didn't shoot one that night. I didn't have any sort of negative emotions about not shooting one. I was like, that's, we just weren't meant to do it. There's going to be a reason eventually that's going to come out of why it was best that we didn't. And sure enough, there it was. And it was a much better story that you killed Junky the next night than anything we could have done Friday night, I think.
Right. Yeah. And kind of going down there, I kind of knew that I had a feeling also that I'm like, yeah, it's warm. Not a lot of people are out, but I'm gonna give it a shot. And that's kind of when it happens for me. Honestly, I've killed a lot of my bucks, all four of my bucks with the bow, or all. I should say that I've killed five, but one was in November. But the other four have been September when it's been crucially warm.
Yeah, like
So
you haven't had like that storybook. Oh, it's a cold front. The weather dropped 10 degrees today. I'm out in the stand, and that gets the big boy up on his feet or anything. You've had a lot of early season, and then, like you said, you had some November, but for the most part, it hasn't been like that textbook cold front that got it done for you.
Right. And last year I had an opportunity, just happened so quick in November, and that's what us deer hunters live for. And I'm still gonna be out there, whether it's when we're in Minnesota or back in Wisconsin filming for my dad or my uncle. I still got 6 days of vacation, so I'll be taking off, and I won't be missing it. It's something different. I love. It's kind of almost. I told you, or I told my dad. I said, it's kind of bittersweet. Like, don't get me wrong, shooting a buck is awesome this early, but you live for those November mornings, crisp, cold morning when you get out there and the deer are just flying around. Which I'm still not gonna. I'll be there, so it's not like I'm not gonna hunt, but I'll be in the cameraman, not the driver's seat, which is fine by me. So
Yeah, you got to get yourself a hang on and some trees that are skinny enough to get one up in pretty easily, and you'll be in good shape just to get to
right.
experience it all. I don't expect you to be sitting on the couch many weekends.
Yeah, I'm already planning on going back up on Friday, hopefully with my dad.
Well, and
Whether
go ahead.
I was gonna say whether he comes or not, I'll be up there. Um, back on the Dole Patrol mission, and I think my other uncle's gonna be up there. It could turn out to be a good weekend. If Terry's up there and it's just him and I, and if I get a Dole Friday, or even if I don't, I might just start hanging stands where he's gonna go, and we'll be sitting together.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say is that you guys typically try to shoot quite a few does off that property every year, anyways. So, it's far from over at this point. You're gonna probably shoot two or three or who knows how many before the season's over. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully we get you out there and you can whack a few, or whatever happens. So,
yeah,
um,
I'm gonna try. I think we're gonna be back at it this weekend. Um, Wind is kind of whatever. It's not the greatest. It's not the worst. It's pretty much south, maybe a little bit southeast. And we have stands for it. It'll be what it'll be. Our trail cameras still aren't super hot. I know they obviously don't tell the full story, but you can still get quite a bit of information off of them. When things are a little bit hotter and a little bit cooler, so it's a good gauge. It's not 100%, but they tend to be pretty accurate. But we'll see. I'm thinking, we'll probably give it the full weekend, and if I can get out at a decent time on Friday, possibly even maybe sneak in for an hour or 2 hour sit Friday night and just try to make something happen. I don't know, but I'm kind of trying to switch my perspective on things like we talked about right away in the episode of waiting to shoot a deer because you're waiting for that buck to walk by, or waiting to shoot a doe, I should say, because you're waiting for that buck to walk by. I'm like, not this year. It's been so long since I've even shot a deer, and really so long since any of us have taken a deer of any kind off of that property. Like, to shoot a doe there would still be an accomplishment at all. Period. Throughout the season, so I'm not really taking that too lightly. If I get the opportunity at a doe, I'm not gonna pass it up.
for sure. And like I'm stoked to still be out there, and I think a lot of people should be. There's plenty of season left, and
Oh yeah,
even though the weather, we're still waiting for that. Not that cold front, but it's just way too warm right now.
right.
Way warm. I was looking at the weather. Rarely ever watch the weather, and for some reason, I was at the gym today and it was on. So I was watching it, and it was saying like the average highs right now are like 65. This weekend's supposed to be 80.
Yeah,
So it's like, what do you do? I mean, you just gotta get out there and try. So that's what we'll be doing. I know. I'll try to be out there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and hopefully we can put some on the ground.
right. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't quite feel like fall yet, which I think a lot of people are kind of waiting for. But I mean, you've proven it now a few times. You can still kill bucks in September when the weather is hot. I mean, they're living somewhere. Yeah, that cold front might get him up on his feet. He might cover more ground and give you a better opportunity at it. But if you just key in on where they're bedding, where they're feeding, figure out some of those patterns and hunt enough and pay attention to what the deer are telling you, like they're still very killable in the early season. So there's no sense in waiting for a cold front to come through that is going to make you miss all kinds of fun opportunities to be out in the woods.
Yeah, like just like we touched on right before this episode, like um, I got pictures of one of our second biggest shooter right now at 5 o'clock in the afternoon today, just cruising. Like,
Yep.
it's a little chilly today. It's in the 60s, but it's just that little cold front that comes through drops 15, 20 degrees since this weekend. The deer, they get up and move. They know the rain's coming, which it's been raining all day. It finally stopped. It's starting to rain again, so I'm sure that's why they were up even earlier. But like last night, I had them in daylight too. So just kind of goes to show that if you just do a little bit of homework and watch the forecast, you can put yourself in a pretty good position based on your trail cameras if you know what the deer are doing and you know what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah, I think you and Terry should get up there tomorrow night.
I was thinking about it. I really was.
I mean,
I got to take that in though.
oh yeah. Well, have April do that.
Yeah, come back in a sneak position with the ears forward.
Oh man, no, it's all good. Yeah, no, it's only heating up from here. I mean, as temperature cools down, the action is going to be heating up from here. Colby and Eli they're going to get on one. They're going to get on a couple, hopefully. There's a lot of season left, a lot of hunting left to do. So it's only going to get more and more exciting from here. But you certainly kicked it off with a bang, man. So congrats again, and that turned out to be a pretty cool story.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, for anybody who is just hearing this podcast now and is like, "Oh, I didn't know they shot a buck already," you're definitely gonna want to go watch that video. It tells a pretty good story. It's not one of those videos that's like 8 minutes long where it's just a quick intro and then you shoot the buck and then you go find it and you celebrate for a little bit and then cut. It kind of tells the full story of the weekend. We go through a lot of what happened on Friday night. If you have listened to this episode, a lot of that stuff's going to maybe make a little bit more sense, fill in some of those gaps. So it's a longer video, but I think it's well worth watching. There's a lot of cool stuff in it, and you did a great job getting the footage. That is not an easy thing to do in the heat of the moment. Getting the shot on camera, but then also like having the wherewithal to film the tracking and dragging it out and gutting it. Like you did a great job on all that. There's no gaps in the video, really. You did a great job, so it's a pretty sweet video.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on the channel. You know where to find it. And as always with this video, with this podcast, and with any of the other ones, you hit that like button. We really appreciate it. Leave us a comment and make sure you're subscribed to the channel because, like Jake said, we do this podcast every single week. And we're going to have videos for you, hopefully pretty often here this fall. And hopefully there's a lot of good stuff coming. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you guys next time.